Hello, everybody. Shane, if you would kindly take away the promo. This is Joe Firestone.
Hi, I'm Ramona Massachi.
And this is the Dump The Incumbents Show. And we are co-hosts of that show. Okay, and Ramona is making her debut here. I'm very, very happy that she has come. I think that we're going to do great together. And Lisa Theobald is greeting you.
Hi, Lisa. Hearts, loves, kisses.
Okay, so just to, I'm sorry, but you were saying.
Can I just give them some of my thoughts before we start going through slideshows and discussing?
That would be wonderful.
I think this is a fantastic idea because we are literally out of time. We need something drastic, something that's going to turn everything upside down. And we unfortunately do not have the structure for a revolution yet, which I wish we did because it would be a lot easier. But we don't have that structure built up. So we're still stuck in electoral politics, and electoral politics is not working for us because the majority of Congress is owned by corporations, and they've made that legal for themselves. So being able to create a national campaign where you're ousting everybody that's been there, for longer than, let's say, 5-6 years, everybody that's, been there for an extended period of time and has seniority, you throw them all out. And then you have a whole new batch of people. And it will create an instability in Congress where they will know that they won't be able to hold that seat unless they deliver. I mean, either way, we're going down. Like the earth is ceasing life. So either way, we're totally screwed. So at least this way, we go down fighting. And I like a lot. This was a great idea, Joe.
Okay, thank you, Ramona. I greatly appreciate that, of course. What I would like to add is you are not only getting rid of so many people, but in getting rid of so many people, you're also getting rid of the norms that they practiced. You're also getting rid, or at least have the potential to get rid of the rules they played by.
Well, you're creating instability. So when there's instability, nobody knows what the rules are anymore.
There's an opportunity to change the rules and to create some new rules, since the present rules work hand in glove with corporate donors and how they dominate the Congress. The filibuster works in their favor. The seniority system works in their favor. The hierarchical structure of the House, with the leadership and total control of it, works in their favor because they can give lots of money, to a relatively few people, and they can dominate the whole scene in the House, and in the Senate. They don't need a majority of Democrats to make sure that nothing significant gets through the Senate. Now, they can be safe by giving money to almost everyone. That's true. But also in the Senate, they can buy off from 8 to 10 people, and of course the Republicans, and they've got that control. And we can't get a good bill through, not even when a good bill is supported by 88% of the primary voters in the Democratic Party. We still can't get that bill through Congress. We don't have a shot. And the Speaker of the House tells us you're never going to get Medicare for all. She's confident. She's so confident she tells us openly, you will never get this. So we need to break up the rules. We need to break up the norms. We need to break up the power structure. We need to get a new power structure in there that serves our needs. And that's what getting rid of all these congressmen and all these senators would do. That's one thing it would do. The second thing it would do, of course, is to scare the people who follow them and to scare the people who remain, who survive the purge. Because even if they survive it the first time, that doesn't mean they're going to survive it the second time or the third time. Yes.
So the left is very special, right? Because the left reads a lot. They educate each other. They care. They're involved, like all parts, no matter what your direction is. But no matter what your priorities are, you're paying attention. You know what's going on. Most voters have no idea what's going on. They're just living their lives. They're fully aware the government's corrupt, and they just, have given up. Or, they've been sucked into some sort of like team sport that doesn't actually tell them the truth. How do we get both sides? People who are totally just checked out. And because that's always been the problem. How do you get people that are always checked out? Because the majority of people are just checked out. They just don't care. They're just like, I can't freaking do anything about this. It's not working. And it's a waste of time. How do we get those people out, right? Because people who are already brainwashed and actually think that either party is working for them in any way, shape, or form, it's very hard to reach them. But people who have checked out, I think there's an opening there because at least they're not delusional. And how do we get those people to pay attention to this and make this something that actually affects, every part of social media? Because that's really what we have. All we have is independent social media to go through. So whether you're using Twitter or YouTube or Facebook or whatever my kids are using, that's all you have. And so how do we create a campaign that would get enough attention for people who don't normally participate to be like, yeah, I'm just going to vote for whoever has not had this seat?
Yep. But if you think about it for a moment, there's a great anger against Congress in general. The approval ratings for Congress as a whole have been in the tank for years, and years.
Because they suck.
Of course, but people may not feel that way about their individual congressperson, but Congress taken as a whole, they hate. There's hate, there's anger and frustration. And there's no outlet in politics for the anger, frustration, and hate, except, of course, maybe to go over to the Trump side and start engaging in attacks on the Capitol or things like that. And there are many people who will not do that. So that's not an alternative for them. One thing about the Dump The Incumbents campaign is that it gives them a way to express the frustration, the anger, the rage, the feeling of powerlessness, that there's nothing they can do. We, this movement, is giving them something to do and is explaining to them that that something can have an effect because it can get rid of the rules, it can get rid of the structures, and it can get rid of the people who've been taking the money. And they know things can't get through because people are taking money. They're ready to believe that. they believed that probably before we were sure that it was true. They've believed it for decades.
I don't even think it's just the money. I think it's the whole society of it. It's the relationships and the parties and the business deals and the, you scratch my back, I scratch your back, and we both become millionaires. It's like all of that. It's that culture. The money it's at the center, it's at the core of it, but there's so much surrounding it that draws them in and sucks them in.
So Lisa says, wait till SCOTUS makes women chattel again. Congress ratings will be in the teens. And so will the courts ratings, by the way. Both Congress and the courts will be in the teens.
But when is enough going to be enough for the American people? When are they going to finally be like, maybe I should start paying attention?
I'm sorry, say that again.
When are they going to say, maybe I should start paying attention? When is enough going to be enough for them?
I don't know. It will be enough for them when they perceive that there's an alternative action, that they can take. In other words, they may be suppressing the idea that it's enough for them because they don't see anything they can do about it. And perhaps if we can present them with something they can do about it, all that rage is going to come to the surface.
And how do we reach all of these people?
We're going to have to start with social media. And then as we go forward, as we get more and more on social media, if we build up fast on social media, we're going to have to develop a ground game. Now, we have people we're working with who are learning very fast how to develop a ground game in the service of ballot initiatives, and things like that. But we're learning their techniques, we're learning their concepts, and a few months down the road, perhaps, we'll be able to develop a ground game along these lines ourselves. Because the people who are developing these tools are ready to share them very widely.
So we have a plan for a ground game. That's all I wanted to make sure.
We have the outlines of a ground game, but we know there has to be a ground game, and we currently perceive techniques that can create a ground game that currently are being used for developing a Medicare for All ground game at the state level that can be extended into other areas, not just stopping there, but can be extended into other areas. Says the main idea behind the Reagan Revolution was to keep people so busy working and family that they have no time to pay attention. Yeah, that's the main reason. But of course, when people's very survival is threatened, when that becomes clear to them, they will begin to pay attention. I shouldn't say everybody, because what will happen is some of them will get totally passive and totally withdraw, but a lot of others are going to be drawn into the fight. That's sort of the way it works. If you check out an old book called The True Believer, by Eric Hoffer, he will tell you that's how it works.
Joe, do you happen to have any data of what percentage of the American people are aware that we need to address climate change now?
I don't have any data off the top of my head, but I am sure that is a very substantial part of the American population, at least 10 to 15%. I don't know if it's more than 10 to 15%, but as we know, 10 to 15% are enough to make a revolution if that, okay, is brought on the ground. However, we're not trying initially to bring that kind of revolution. So the real question becomes, can we convince enough people that, yeah, 2/3 think that government should do more on climate? Yes, Shane, that's absolutely right. But I think Ramona's question was a little different. Okay, her question was about how many people agree with us that we have maybe 2 to 3 years to really do something about that.
Like now,
Different
like
question.
not like 2030, like
Yeah, not
no.
2030, like 2024, 2022, 2023, and 2024. We got to be on top of it by the end
100%.
of that time.
Meaning all of our resources and energy have to be focused on this.
Like in World War II, everything was focused on winning World War II. Now,
Exactly.
there are a lot of people who said the climate emergency is like a war. They've expressed the idea that we have to treat it like a war, but then they turn around and they do not squawk when we do not actually treat it like a war. In fact, we didn't even treat the pandemic like a war. I mean, these people cannot be brought, the people in office right now, cannot be brought to put people, the American people, before profits. That is the problem. It was the
Yeah,
problem
they're
with the
just
pandemic,
soulless creatures.
okay, and it's also the problem with climate change as well. But I would like to go to the problems in a more systematic way. But when I say the problems, I'm talking about
Challenges.
I'm not looking for funny words. From my point of view, it's the disadvantages that people find with this particular proposal of ours, and also the objections they make, because some strong objections, okay, have come around. So I've got basically 7 categories listed here. First of all, some people object, okay, because they say we're going to defeat some people who are good legislators and who don't take any donor money, and we're going to defeat them just because of mistakes. In other words, there are mistakes in every system. There are going to be mistakes here, and we're going to leave. We're bound to lose some good people.
Joe, I don't think so. I don't think the constituents of people
Okay, after this particular slide, we will spend at least a slide, okay, on each of these.
Okay.
Okay, so let's just go through the 7 objections very briefly, and then we'll go into more detail. So, secondly, there's cutting short the careers of good congressmen and senators who do take money from wealthy donors, but who apparently are unbought. Well, for example, one very good example of someone who does take money from wealthy donors, who most of us think is unbought, is Senator Bernie Sanders. So there are other people in Congress who take big money from some of corporations, but if you follow their careers, they've been pretty good congressmen over a period, okay, of years. So if we follow this rule, we're going to be cutting short, okay, the careers of some people like that. In doing that also, what we'll be doing is throwing expertise out of Congress along with the people who have it. The fourth objection is we're going to make it harder to get things done because leadership teams are disrupted. The fifth objection, it won't work to bring change because close to equal numbers of both parties will be defeated. So all we're going to get at the end of this great effort is party gridlock anyway, and we won't be able to pass anything. Sixth, am I on sixth already? Yes. It won't work because too many voters will be afraid to take the risk of making the situation even worse. That objection is the one that is most closely related to the one that you brought up, but near the start of the program, Ramona. So that can get into that part of the discussion. And finally, some people will say this won't work, okay, because it's electoral system and it's electoralism, and that never works. And so we're going to take that up also. Okay, so Shane, if you will bring in the slide, okay, if you will bring in the first of the slides, following slide 16. Okay, Teresa says, I read that it took 3.5% of the population peacefully protesting nationally to change the government. Yeah, that's an example that Tom Hartman, okay, is frequently bringing up. In the USA, that is about 12 million people. We need a coordinating vehicle with the contacts. Now, of course, I'm in support of any efforts like that. They're not in contradiction with what we, are doing here. We can do both of those things. That might be successful. It might not be successful. When Tom Hartman explains that, he's using precedents in history where 3.5% was more than enough to get, a change of governments. And there are many examples like this. I'm not going to say that's not going to work. I'm going to say if people want to try this, sure, let them try it. It will build a movement, help to build a movement if they do something like that.
That would be fantastic.
And we are in favor of movement building activities, all movement building activities on the left anyway, including our own movement building activities. So sure, I'm going to try and do that. So the first of the objections was defeating incumbents who don't take money. Yes, some incumbents may fall due to error. We can try to minimize these losses by publishing a weekly list of those who don't take any big donor money at the official Dump The Incumbents website. We don't have that site up yet, but I'm pretty sure we can get it up within the next 2 weeks. Okay, and the third point is also we can report on attempts to provide misinformation about incumbents. Because once they start this, and once people get scared, they're going to be lying about the incumbents continuously. There's going to be a lot of misinformation, and we're going to have to find that, and we're going to have to counteract it. It's going to be a big job. It's going to take considerable research, and we're going to need lots of volunteers to get it done.
So, Joe, I don't see constituents of people who don't take corporate PAC money, or any money, except small dollar donations from individuals. I don't see those people voting them out. They love their rep.
Yes,
so much.
I
even if we criticize their rep for things that they, that they do, that they sometimes should be criticized for, they're just like, bug off. We love our rep. And they're not going to, they feel so lucky to even have these people representing them.
Yes, I agree with that.
They're not going anywhere.
Yeah, I don't think they're going anywhere either. And I also think that there aren't too many of them. I mean, how many of them are there?
What do we have, like 12, 15?
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, but 6 to 8 of them in the House of Representatives, maybe 12. But take a Pramila Jayapal, for example. She takes a lot of big money.
She does.
She's not one of those.
No.
She's taken, I saw some figures the other day. She was taking something like, had been taking $65,000 from healthcare interests,
Yeah, I read that as well.
for big healthcare interests. So, and we know Ro Khanna takes money.
Yeah, Ro takes plenty of money. And, I don't like Ro. I think he's full of it.
Yeah,
I think he's two-faced.
I think Jayapal, I think he's two-faced also, and Jayapal is also two-faced.
I think Jayapal's also two-faced, and she tries to pretend that she's not. I don't know. Maybe at one point she wasn't. Maybe she walked into it like all
yeah, but this is her third term now.
Yeah.
So she's had plenty of time to be exposed to the big money. And the fact is that she's taking some. And Shane, are those statistics dealing with the money Ro Khanna's been taking?
No, that's Pramila Jayapal.
Yeah, that's Jayapal. So there it is. Very substantial monies.
What's Emily's list, Joe?
What's Emily's list? They
I've heard it before.
Okay. Their list concerned with feminism and feminist types of candidates.
Okay.
They are almost the prime example, of identity politics.
Okay, got it.
Okay, but they've been around for quite a long time now. And I think they're really reprehensible because they support women who are clearly corrupt, clearly part of the establishment, and who have little to commend them, except for the fact that they are women.
Like when everybody was excited that we had a whole bunch of CEOs for the weapons manufacturers.
Yes.
And everyone's like, yay, we have like 3 or 4 or 5 women.
Yes, exactly.
Peddling weapons all over the world to kill people. Go, feminism.
Okay, so I haven't really checked to see whether she was supported, by Emily's list. But the type of candidates they would support are candidates like Abigail Spanberger, who's Miss the CIA, and Alyssa Slotkin, who is Ms. The CIA, and Elaine Luria, who was from Naval Intelligence. We've got a whole cadre of ex-intelligence officers in Congress, and many of them, are women. And easily they were supported, by Emily's list or organizations like that, because they were or are, intelligent women. Intelligent, and middle-class women with a nice sort of, university background. That's the type of candidate.
So I'm in New Jersey. Kay had asked where I'm from. I'm in New Jersey, and my rep is Mikey Sherrill. And Mikey Sherrill
is a very good example of Emily's list type candidate.
She is. Mikey Sherrill constantly is sending out emails and having calls with her constituents about joining the military and supporting the military and
Okay, I think Ramona got frozen for a minute. I'm sure she'll be here. She is.
I am here. Okay, so Mikey Sherrill, she sends out calls and emails about joining the military, supporting the military. Everything for her is like military. And I'm just like, well, you're encouraging these people to send their children to die. What are you doing? And if not to die, to actually come back with lifelong scars. And it's so irresponsible.
There are the monetary statistics, on Mikey Sherrill. Big money.
Big money from
Taking
Emily's
big
list.
money. Yeah,
Goldman
from
Sachs.
Emily's list, the PAC, Goldman Sachs. What's
What's
that? The Kirkland and Ellis, major law firm, okay, in Washington, D.C. But Gibbons PC, I'm not sure what they are, but they've got a lot of money. And Lowenstein, Sandler, LLP, obviously a law firm. Not sure if they're from Washington, D.C.
How is she not getting military money? Because she is so, like, it's like her whole MO.
I don't know. I will bet. I don't know why we're not actually picking it up, but I'll bet she would get some military money. There are contributions here. The chain is scrolling down over many.
Oh, good. Defense. Here we are. Go back.
Yeah,
Here we go.
military contractors.
Yeah, there we go. Military, yeah. Because she just loves them. And energy, and yeah, this is, yeah. So she is just terrible.
They just love her too.
And they love her here. They're like all about Mikey.
But I have to say, she doesn't seem quite as bad as Abigail Spanberger and Elaine Luria and Alyssa Slotkin. I mean, God, those ladies, incredible. But think of the squad. Then think of the exact opposite of the squad. And that's what these ladies are like. That's what they are like. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Ghost Star, also known as Steve, Steev, says Emily's list endorses Nan Whaley in race for Ohio governor. Steve, is she running as a Democrat or is she running as a Republican? Nan Whaley is okay, but I think I like the Cincinnati mayor better. GOP is trying to kill Whaley anyway. Okay, if Nan Whaley is being supported, okay, by Emily's list, then I tell you this, Kay, she is establishment centrist all the way down the line, because it's been years since Emily's list actually supported a progressive. Years. They don't do that. Anyway, so if you'll go to the next slide, Shane. So we run the risk of defeating legislators who are unbought, even though they take money. So I named at least one who I think is unbought, even though they take money. If I had to name another, I would say it's probably Jamie Raskin. I'm not quite sure who he takes money from. I haven't checked it out, but I'm pretty sure he's not simply running small donor campaigns. He does some of that. He's shown both in state politics and in national politics that he has a lot of integrity. And he's a hell of a good lawyer as well. Anyway, using the general rule of running against incumbents will defeat some members who do not take money from the big donors. Who do take money from the big donors, but still don't appear to vote for the interests of those particular donors. So it's unavoidable this is going to happen sometimes. But all these incumbents have to do is to defend themselves is to stop taking the big money. So Shane, did you want to show us something to underline that point? Jamie Raskin, yeah. Okay, who does Jamie Raskin take money? By the way, that's a lot of money he takes up there, right? He takes money from American University, Georgetown University, University of Maryland, the machinists and aerospace, the workers' union. So his solution to the contribution problem is to take money from the universities and from unions. And Hogan Lovells is probably a law firm. So he's taking money from a law firm there. What are some of the other interests that he takes money from? He takes money from IBM, Critical Care Options, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, but Bernstein and Lipset, that's probably another law firm. Conceptual Analysis, LLC. I wonder what that is. Is that a defense contracting firm? I wonder.
Conceptual analytics, and it sounds like
It sounds like a Beltway bandit firm.
it sounds like they make something. Like
Yeah.
they have some CNC machines going.
Yeah, they make something like, for example, AI. They might be AI types.
Right.
The Federal Reserve System. He gets money from the Federal Reserve System. The American Federation of Government Employees. So he's got big interests that he takes money from. But his solution to the problem, is Arnold and Porter, Cade, Scholar. They're an extremely rich, legendary law firm here, in DC. And they have interests. And I'm sure Jamie defends those. God bless you. Or
I was coughing. What I don't understand is, how do these people, defend intentions that don't benefit the whole, right? For, 20, 30, 40, $50,000, and then go to sleep at night. Like, how do they, how are they okay with that?
Okay, we're looking at
never
the
understood
pattern of donations for Jamie Raskin. He takes money from interests that, in general, are perceived as relatively clean. In other words, not, really damaging to the environment. Generally, interests that, don't have a reputation as being part of the right wing. The law firms he takes money from are respectable law firms. He gets a lot of money from some of the unions. The unions involved are establishment unions, because there really aren't any militant unions that are left now, except maybe for the nurses union. But communication workers union, perhaps from time to time. So, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 unions, that are really militant, at this time. But he takes money from unions like that. So he's probably discriminating. He probably figures he needs money, and he's going to go to sources that are relatively clean, that won't be interfering with his voting very much. And that's probably how he stays pretty clean himself. And I think that's been the solution in Congress until Bernie basically proved the concept that you could run small donor campaigns and get enough money to win.
And raise millions and millions of dollars.
Right. And now you have the squad people who are raising enough money to get reelected to Congress and to fend off the heavy challenges that they get from the moneyed interest, because they themselves are capable of raising millions of dollars in small donations. Ocasio-Cortez is a money machine.
I really wish there was a caucus in Congress that would support other candidates that don't take any dirty money, that are grassroots candidates, and they would support them early and help them win their campaigns. And we just do not have that yet.
Yes. Now, maybe we will in a few years, but we don't have a few years.
We don't have no time. We're out of time.
Yeah.
We have now.
So Shane, if you would go back to the slide that we were looking at, and thank you for your contribution, by the way. It is unavoidable that this will happen sometimes, but all these incumbents have to do to defend themselves is to stop taking money. If people are taking donor money, there will always be a tendency for that money to influence them. Why? Because men are not saints. We cannot trust that what did not corrupt them yesterday is not going to corrupt them today. And finally, our goal here is to get money out of politics. We cannot sacrifice that goal to accommodate the few congressmen who may be saints. Okay, generally, a footnote on this: when you talk to congressmen who take a lot of money, well, let's take Ro Khanna. If you ask him about his contributions, he's going to tell you that, well, he gets those contributions because the contributors agree with him, but that he is not at all influenced by these contributors. So let's be real. Ro Khanna is saying, I'm one of those saints. I can't be influenced by the money. I am not influenced by the money. Even though I take, $3.3 million and he runs for Congress. He can probably get as much money as he wants to get reelected by his constituents in Silicon Valley. They like Ro.
Yeah, he's serving them well.
He's the guy from Silicon Valley, and they like him. Okay, Shane, please go back to that. And finally, the goal here is to get okay, so let's go on to slide 19, I guess. I guess we both moved it at the same time. So, okay, the next objection was throwing experts out of Congress. Some are going to insist, they do insist, that using the general rule of dumping the incumbents will remove critical legislative skills from Congress that will prevent it from producing good legislation. There may be a degradation of legislative skill if the rule is followed. But what is this skill used for now? Well, there are 4 things that I know it's used for. For bottling up good legislation in committee and letting it die there. For writing overly complex legislation that voters don't understand. For using nifty parliamentary maneuvers to protect the members of Congress from accountability. Giving them essentially fig leaves. So it's hard to take ads against them saying directly that they voted against, let's say, getting $15 an hour into the American Rescue Plan. Now, how was that done? Well, it was done. Here comes the bill from the House. Okay, it comes over from the House. It's got the $15 an hour in it. Schumer, as the majority leader of the Senate, if he doesn't get an objection from one senator, he can put a bill on the floor that is not identical to the House bill. Specifically, what he did is he just took the $15 an hour provision out of the bill and put a new bill on the floor without the $15 an hour in it. Now, in doing that, he was protecting Manchin and Sinema and 6 other Democrats who didn't want to see the $15 an hour in it and who didn't have the guts to vote against $15 an hour if Schumer had put the House bill on the floor as is. So Schumer accommodated them by taking it out himself before it ever hit the floor.
It's a team sport.
It was a team sport. That's right. And Bernie did not interfere. He could have gone to Schumer and he could have said to Schumer, look, if you take $15 an hour out of it, I'm going to vote against this bill. And I have Ed Markey and Jeff Merkley and Kirsten Gillibrand and Sherrod Brown, and we're going to all stand together and we're going to vote against this bill, and it will not pass.
Why don't they do that? Why don't they do that before the bills get on the floor? Why don't they negotiate harder?
They could certainly, before Schumer put that new bill on the floor, he made a call to Bernie and he told Bernie, look, I'm going to do this, Bernie. I have to do this because otherwise this bill is not going to pass, because we got 8 senators who are going to vote against this bill, or so they say. At that point, it was up to Bernie. He could have said, Chuck, if you change this bill, it comes over from the House, I am not going to vote for it. And I've got 4 other friends who are going to stick with me. So you put this bill on the floor, and if they feel so strongly about it, they can vote against it. How about that, Chuck? That's what he should have done. And why didn't he do it? Because it was the American Rescue Plan. Because people were going to get $1,400 per person, because they needed the $1,400 per person. And Bernie always plays the long game in situations like that. If he can get something for people, he gets what he can get, and he lives to fight another day.
Yeah, but the problem is that we don't have another day.
Exactly.
Like, we need this now. We need to change our whole economic system now, and where we're putting our resources now. And they keep playing these games thinking that everything's just going to be okay. And you know, the middle class will still be here, and they'll still have a base that'll support them. And that base is dwindling away.
Right. And Bernie is operating according to the rule book that he operated with when he first came into the Congress, okay, in the 1980s. It's the same rule book. He always uses the same rule book, okay, in Congress. If he can get something, you know, he's always out there alone. If he can get something for people, he'll make a deal and he'll get something for people, even if he has to pay a big price to get something for people. Now, he had advocated for $15 an hour for years and years and years. He paid a big price taking $15 an hour out of it, but he was still willing to pay for it because he thinks, live to fight another day. We cannot live to fight another day anymore, because there won't be another day. Not too many more days. Not too many more days for Bernie Sanders either. He's getting old. He's got to get what he can get at this point, right now. And the only way he can do that is by saying no. He has to learn to say no. Just no. Just like Manchin and Sinema do. And let Biden handle that problem.
Yeah, let them crash and burn and not pass legislation because $15 an hour isn't there. Because $15 an hour is there and they're against it. And they could be the ones that say that they voted against it. And but you know, Bernie, in his mind's eye, he's thinking, okay, well, what does that accomplish? Because then nobody gets anything. At least we get something.
Right, but you got to look beyond the initial vote. That American Rescue Plan had to be passed. The pressure was on Congress to pass that. So what if Bernie had forced them to take a vote and they took the negative vote? Then the pressure would have descended on them the $15 an hour would have passed anyway with the rest of the bill in 2 or 3 weeks. You've got to play so that you put the pressure on the other side. Okay, but this is getting off the topic, so let's go back.
Go ahead. You're right.
It's getting a little bit off the topic, I think, Okay, so anyway, that was a nifty parliamentary maneuver that Schumer did to accommodate Manchin and Sinema and Chris Coons and also Mark Warner and some of the other senators who didn't want to see the $15 an hour. Schumer protected them that way. Also, Nancy Pelosi, when you look at the things that she does constantly, all the time, you see that she uses parliamentary maneuvers to help people avoid taking votes that can then be used against them in ads that will be played by the other side.
Yeah, she protects them so that the scum can stay.
She protects them so that they're not exposed as having taken a negative vote on something that is very popular. That's what she does. And she does that very well. Okay, so my slide 19 here is blocking that final point. Shane, can you help me with that? Anyway, of course, some skill is needed. However, the willingness to legislate for the people is needed more. It's nice to have really skilled people in there, but if those skilled people are not willing to legislate for us, then we don't need them in there.
We don't need their skills.
We don't need their skills because they're using their skills
to hurt us.
That's the truth of the matter. So then there's the point, Lisa raises the issue of experts in what? Well, I tried to indicate some of the areas in which their expertise is applied. They're experts at doing the things I stated and many other things, okay, as well.
They're experts in watching each other's back and knowing how to.
Yes. It's a team sport. A team sport. Disruption of leadership teams. Some will criticize using the general rule on grounds that will disrupt the leadership in Congress. The most general reply to that is that disrupting leadership blocks and structures is a feature of the general rule. It isn't a bug. The results that congressional leaders have produced over these last 40 years have been terrible. They've presided over the worst decline in equality in our history. They've presided over the worst accumulation of unsolved problems since the period before the Civil War. So disruption and replacement of these leadership teams is exactly what we want to do. Any comments or thoughts on that, Ramona?
Well, I think there's a very good chance of replacing a lot of incumbents. And then there's some incumbents that are, for example, Ro Khanna. Ro Khanna is supported by Silicon Valley, and they're not going to replace him.
And also, he looks like a pretty good congressman. He can cite various bills he voted for, various bills he introduced, various bills that he voted against. And he can cite some good things that he's done in the 3 terms that he's been in Congress. For better or worse, he's been one of the 10 most progressive congresspeople in Congress during the time that he's been there, in spite of all the money that he takes. So yes, some of these people are going to survive. We're not going to replace 435 of the congressmen, but we don't have to do that.
No, we just need to replace like several dozen, and that would be enough of a wake up call to shake them in their boots.
I don't know if I agree with that, and I think we could replace from 200 to 250 congresspeople.
Yeah, you think it's possible to get enough people onto this to look at who has been in office and just vote for somebody else?
I think if our movement gets started, a lot of people are going to want to express their anger by voting against incumbents, especially incumbents who have been there for a very long time, incumbents who have been taking large quantities of money, much larger than Ro Khanna, such as Nancy Pelosi, okay, and incumbents who have obviously been working against the interests, okay, of people. It won't be hard to make the case against them and to just say they need to be defeated.
But Nancy also has a very similar cushy situation like Ro Khanna. She's in San Francisco. She had Shahid ran against her. He did, the best anybody's ever done. And then, there was like a whole attack on him.
Yeah, I know they manufactured an entirely dishonest attack on him.
I think that was planned. And so now there's several people that, including Shahid, there are several people that are running against her. But it's very, very, very difficult to bring Nancy down. I really hope they do bring Nancy down, though.
But it's going to be very difficult. But on the other hand, a movement like ours will make it more possible to bring her down, because a movement like ours could change the climate. If people get persuaded by the idea that the way to change things is to bring down the incumbents in Congress, and a lot of them vote according to the rule, then Nancy could well be sunk in this tidal wave of anger against the Congress, because she has been central to the workings of the Congress since the late but 1980s. If they're pissed at Congress, they got to be pissed at Nancy Pelosi, because she's been at the heart of things for so long. And these are the times that people remember as being bad times. I mean, if you're a millennial or somebody even more recent, what do you really think about Nancy Pelosi or somebody like that? You got to be really, really angry. I mean, no relief for student debt, and Nancy Pelosi basically supporting Biden in this idiot political move. What could be a stupider political move than not making 43 million people happy when you have the sole power to do that? People immediately saying, we're going to vote for you to a person. And this guy doesn't have enough of a brain to do that? What the hell is going on here?
Yeah. I know people who love Nancy Pelosi also.
And Shane says, I have family my age who love Pelosi and who watch MSNBC.
Yeah, me too.
Well,
and I also have family that love Donald Trump and watch Fox. So
yeah, I know. And I've got family like that too. But the point is, if we change enough opinions and the climate of the times changes, It can be a fad. We can create a fad to vote against the incumbent in order to get money out of politics. That's not even about whether you like Nancy Pelosi or don't like Nancy Pelosi. It's about if you want money out of politics, what is one of the best things you could do to get money out of politics?
Get the person who's taking money, who's in politics, out of politics.
And who's taking more money than anybody else in the House of Representatives?
Nancy.
Yeah, Nancy Pelosi.
She's a money machine. That's how she started.
And the next most
Started as a
important money machine on the Democratic side in Congress is probably Richie Neal. So there it is. Fran Barrett says, me too, like all of my family and friends. They love Nancy Pelosi. Look, there can't be that many people who love Nancy Pelosi because her approval ratings are in the tank. I know we all know people who like her, but if you look at polls of Nancy Pelosi, I mean, Nancy Pelosi is less popular than Donald Trump. She's just not that popular. Okay, let's go back to the slide, Shane.
So can I mention something?
Please.
I don't think people understand how powerful mass consciousness is. And when you have mass consciousness, it doesn't even have to, if you have like 1 million people, right? Or several 100,000 people, and they're thinking the same thing and they're doing the same action, that creates such a vibration and it affects everything. It creates change and shift and movement. And that's why Bernie's 2 runs created such a shift in our political environment. Because neither of us would be sitting here talking if Bernie didn't run those 2 times. He really inspired generations of people. So us taking this and spreading it and having as many people understand this and actually act upon it, even if you replace, not 250, even if you replace, like, let's say 100 people or 50 people or whatever, it creates such a magnificent shift and movement. And then it opens doors for more movement because then people feel empowered. And when do you feel empowered? Also empowered on a mass scale, you really can create anything.
Yep, I think so. Okay, and I think that point is a very, very important point. I don't know if we can move 250 of them out or 200 of them out the first time around, or 150 of them out, or even 100 of them out. But if we move any substantial number out, if this movement moves any substantial number out, then the remaining congresspeople and senators will be afraid of this movement. And what's our objective? It's to persuade the people in Congress that to take the big money is toxic, that money is toxic, that it greatly increases their chance of getting beaten.
Not only taking it, but also, being their henchmen.
Well, of course, we're equating the two. Because we're saying if you take it, sooner or later, you're going to be henchmen for them. If it doesn't corrupt you today, it's going to corrupt you tomorrow. You're not going to stay clean.
Because you're going to get a phone call and that person's going to be like, listen, you're my pal, you're my friend. Remember that vacation we took together? Remember this and that? There's a bill coming. Do you mind voting for it like this? It would really help me out a lot.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing they get all the time. That's the way they talk to each other. And Joe Biden, who was Joe Biden staying with now? He's staying with the head of the Carlyle Group. And by the way, you know who started up the Carlyle Group?
Who?
The Bushies.
Oh.
The Carlyle group is a Bushy group. So here's Joe Biden staying at the summer home of someone in tight with the Bushy interests in the Republican Party. Some Democrat. He is. He's not going to stay at some rich Democrat's home. He's going to stay at some rich Republican's home. Okay, well, at least this guy isn't a Trumpist.
I mean, what's what's the difference? So they're all in bed with each other.
They're in bed with each other. I think there is a difference in the sense of visible fascism as opposed to invisible fascism.
But they produce the same results, or it's at least similar.
They produce similar results and even the same results, in the long run. But maybe the process of their producing those results is more comfortable for many of us than an out-and-out fascist regime would be. So Lana says we have to remember this Dump The Incumbents effort is both short-term 2022, but also long-term 2024 and 2026. Dr. Joe has pointed out 3 times 2-year terms to turn over the reps and the senators completely. Yes, we would need at least to keep this going for 3 terms. And for senators to believe that we're going to keep this going for 3 terms. So even senators who were elected in 2020 would be subject to this rule during the period from 2025 and 2026. So we got to do that. So there's the idea, further objection, that this won't work to bring change. Following the rule won't work to bring change because close to equal numbers of both parties will be defeated, so party gridlock is going to remain. This misses the point because what we're facing is not really party gridlock blocking change. That's only what's going on at the surface level. Underneath, it's about corporate money and individual wealth creating party gridlock that is blocking the legislation that is going to benefit us or that would benefit us. It's the corporate versus the people conflict, which is the conflict that we're getting involved in and that we're trying to win, a victory in. We don't really care about the party gridlock. The gridlock we're trying to break is the gridlock that corporate money, and individual wealth is imposing on our ability to get people in Congress to listen to us and produce the kinds of bills we need to continue to live. The change we need is getting the money out of Congress and getting the money out of elections for Congress, getting corporations out of politics, getting individual wealth out of politics. Disrupting Congress by defeating large numbers of incumbents will bring rule changes, structural changes, and democratization and policy changes to Congress. What I mean by democratization is that you send a representative to Congress these days, that representative, even if they're not corrupt, that matters little in the first 2 to 4 years they're in Congress because they don't get any influence on the committees. They don't get any influence in the formulation of legislation that gets to the floor. They can produce the most brilliant and useful bills, like the Automatic Boost to Communities Act, by Rashida Tlaib, and by Pramila, who co-sponsored it with her. But it wasn't her bill. It was Rashida's bill. And the bill was written by Rowan Gray. It was written by an MMTer who knew what was going on what could be done for the people during the middle of the pandemic.
Yeah, I loved Mint the Coin campaign. That was great.
That
Still can
bill,
happen.
that bill
Still
never
there.
got to the floor. It never had a bit of influence because Rashida doesn't have a bit of influence. And she doesn't have a bit of influence because she's only a second-term congressperson. Doesn't have much influence in terms of committee positions that she has. Doesn't have too many friends, okay, in Congress. She can do a lot of good symbolic work, but she can't get anything through. But if Congress were to be democratized, if there were rule changes, okay, to democratize it, structural changes, okay, would then occur. For example, just think about a rule that if someone introduces a bill into the House, okay, of Representatives, and you get 20 House members, okay, in favor of the bill, that's a fairly sizable number, okay, of House members. So what if you have a rule that said if you get 20 co-sponsors for a bill, that bill has to go to the floor within 3 business days?
But the only way that you could get that is if you get Rashida more friends.
She probably has enough friends
in Congress
to get 20 co-sponsors for a bill such as that if the people knew that bill had to get a floor vote. Now it has no chance to get a floor vote.
Right, but we can't even get that. We can't even get that rule in without Rashida having more friends in Congress who would vote for that rule to be there to begin with.
But, of course, we're going to be defeating the incumbents, and progressives will have a chance to elect, okay, a greater number, okay, of people. But I think she even has enough friends in Congress now to get 20 co-sponsors for a bill like that. If there were a rule in Congress right now that bill had to get a floor vote, say within 3 business days. But there's no rule like that now. And with the present structure of power in Congress, there will never be a rule like that. But if we disrupt Congress with our campaign, then the rules can be changed. Why can the rules be changed? Because the power of Nancy Pelosi and her leadership team will be broken or greatly weakened when January 3rd of 2023 comes around. If there's a situation like there is in Congress now with the parties being fairly evenly split, and say the Democrats still have something of an advantage, then there would be enough people who would be willing to vote against Nancy Pelosi, not let her be Speaker again. Then a number of other people would step forward to be Speaker. And then the new people coming into Congress would be able to exert some power and make some deals. Like
a lot of the seniority will be gone also, so they won't have that pressure.
A lot of the seniority will be gone as well. So they can get new rules if they want those new rules. And a rule like this would make all of the backbenchers, all of the representatives, more powerful than they are now. And all the new representatives coming into Congress will want to be more powerful than the old representatives were. Because they all know that now new people coming into Congress have no power at all. They have to wait 3 or 4 terms before they get some power. But if they change the rules, they won't have to wait any time at all to get some power. They'll have power in that first term. And their constituents will like that because their constituents' influence will be better felt in that way. So that kind of change is very important but to make. And we don't see it now. There's no chance of getting that kind of change now. So here's a generalized kind of objection. It won't work because too many will fear making the situation worse. This fear arises out of specific choices people must make. It doesn't have anything specifically to do with the idea of getting money out of politics by defeating the incumbents. Instead, it focuses on the individual characteristics, of each race. So, for example, in Pennsylvania politics right now, Connor Lamb, it is said, who's a centrist congressman, he's fairly popular, but he is kind of centrist. It would be like electing, another Josh Gottheimer, but probably a little smarter, to the Congress. But he's being opposed by John Fetterman, who's the lieutenant governor, of Pennsylvania, and from a progressive point of view is a much preferred candidate. He does have a problem. His problem is that the main funder of his campaign is his father, who's an insurance company tycoon. And Fetterman is certainly taking, a lot of money from him. So Fetterman, in that sense, is a bought candidate. So you have the dilemma from people, in Pennsylvania. Should I vote for Connor Lamb, who, of course, is going to be taking huge sums of money from the interests, from the defense interests, from the healthcare interests, probably from oil company interests? Or should I go for Fetterman, who is taking large amounts of money from rich people as well? So this is the situation of two major party non-incumbents who are running in a primary, both taking big money. Well, there are answers you can give to this kind of a dilemma. If you want to be consistent, with the rule, actually the rule of voting against the incumbents doesn't apply to this particular situation because there isn't an incumbent. So you have two non-incumbents. So what's the best thing you could do? Other things being equal, it's vote for the non-incumbent taking the least amount, of big money. In the concrete case in Pennsylvania, that's probably going to be John Fetterman, because probably Connor Lamb is going to raise a lot more money, than John Fetterman. So based on the financials alone, John Fetterman probably is going to be, an underdog. I don't know if that will be strange to him because I think he's actually been an underdog in many of the races that he's previously run, including his race for lieutenant governor that he won recently. So then here's another situation. You can have two major party incumbents who are running in a primary and both are taking big money. How can that sort of thing happen? Well, let's say there's a redistricting in California and you have two incumbents who are living in the same district who have to run against each other and both, are Democrats. Of course, in California, there are jungle primaries. So even the party is not so important there. One could have someone who was formerly a Republican incumbent and someone, who was formerly a Democratic incumbent. They both, are running against each other. So the question is, two incumbents, are running. How do you choose between two incumbents, both of whom are taking big money? So please go back to the slide, Shane. So the rule is a subsidiary rule. In other words, when you have a situation where the Dump The Incumbents, does not apply. So if there's no non-incumbent who is running in that race, no, I should say, if a non-incumbent is running in that race, then the rule would be dump both the incumbents and go for a non-incumbent, okay, who was
What district is this? California what?
I'm not saying it's a specific district now, but you can get situations where a redistricting produces two incumbents, okay, who are running for the same seats.
Uh-huh.
Okay, that happens. For example, a few years ago, okay, in Ohio, but Dennis Kucinich got screwed in a redistricting that put him up against a lady by the name of Marcy Kaptur, who was a fairly good congressman, nowhere near as good, okay, as Dennis, but she had some advantages over Dennis. But she was a woman. To some degree, she was representative, okay, of the interests of the Catholic Church. She was popular, as Dennis, okay, was also popular. She was taking more big money, okay, than Dennis. But it was a situation where there were two incumbents, okay, who were matched against each other, but because of a redistricting change. In New York State, we're going to see a redistricting change. Okay, I think that New York State has lost a congressperson. So probably then two incumbents are going to be matched against each other, and you'll have a situation like that. So Lana asks, what is a jungle primary? Okay, it's a primary where the party affiliation does not count, okay, in the primary. So you can have a number of candidates from each party, okay, that are running together. And the top two go into the general. Okay,
so you could have two Democrats go into the general together, which is basically what maybe a girl is going to be doing.
Right. And in 2020, in Nancy Pelosi's district, she won the general primary, but Shahed Buttar came in second, okay, in the jungle primary. So he went up against her in the general, and he lost in the general, and she won. But it was a case of two Democrats, because Shahed was running as a Democrat there as well.
Mm-hmm.
So in California, because of the way redistricting works, you're likely to get a number of situations where two Republicans are running against each other, or two Democrats, okay, are running against each other. So that thing can not only happen, it will happen fairly frequently. Okay, so if a non-incumbent, okay, is running, then the rule is dump the incumbents. Dump them both, okay, vote for the non-incumbent. Who is the non-incumbent actually likely to be? Well, it could very well be a Green Party candidate, could very well be a Libertarian candidate. Okay, it could very well be a People's Party candidate. Okay, so this obviously is a situation where third parties get some chance. Now, if no non-incumbent, okay, is running, then you vote for the incumbent taking the least amount, okay, of big money. So
the candidate taking the least amount of money, because no incumbent is running.
If no non-incumbent, okay, is running.
Oh, okay, got it.
Then you vote for the incumbent who's taking the least amount, okay, of big money. And the final situation that I talk about here, there are other situations, but these are the three main ones that you're going to see. There may be one major party incumbent and one major party candidate taking big money. In that situation, I recommend you vote for a third party candidate who is not taking any big money. So those are the recommendations that I'm making, okay, at this point. There are other situations I have not actually covered here. Those are likely to come up, but in this series, we'll be talking about things like that. because the way this series is going to go forward, we have stated in the first part, in the first episode, we have stated a number of advantages that comes out of the proposal. In future episodes, we'll be talking a lot more about those advantages. And later on, we'll be talking a lot more about the disadvantages, and we'll be coming up with new objections, because we're talking about a long-run campaign here, and people are going to be generating objections all the time. Many of the, I think many of those are likely to be very interesting, maybe even fascinating. And people are going to bring us also questions about specific races and say, this person is running here, this person, is running there. What is the choice that is most consistent with the rules, that you've been developing over a period of time to guide us, rules which are designed to get money out of politics so we can create politics again, real politics. And the final few slides deals with, it won't work because electoralism. I went by the first slide on that. So this is an objection you're hearing all over at this place. A lot of our comrades from the left, and I don't use comrades in a sarcastic way, I mean it sincerely, are saying that relying on electoralism, on the electoral system, to make change doesn't work. Since when we look at history, we see that every significant change is motivated by movements and collective direct action, of various kinds.
This is a collective direct action, though.
Exactly. This is a collective action.
That's why I like it.
You caught that. You caught that. That's very good. My reply is first, that electoralism does work in some contexts, but not in others. It doesn't always fail. Because when you see electoralism supplemented by direct action, that has worked all over Western and Northern Europe, and Canada, and Australia, and New Zealand, to produce strong social safety nets and welfare states with much greater economic equality and happiness than we find, in our country. So you can point to other countries where electoralism has worked. Now, the reason why it's been largely ineffective here in the U.S. over the last 40 years is because the conditions for its success, specifically mass movements using frequent direct action, along with strong unions, fair, and unrigged elections, provide a much greater chance for legislatures to legislate for the people. But here in the United States, those conditions, are undermined, have been undermined by the power of money in politics. So what I'm saying is, if we get rid of the money in politics, we will be restoring the conditions under which electoralism can work and has worked, in other countries. So that's what this movement is about. It's about getting rid of money in politics so we can make elections and electoralism effective again. So that's the first slide on this. The second one says, what we have to do is to bring back the conditions that underpin electoralism, that produces legislation benefiting people. We do that through mass movements, demanding different forms of justice, using a variety of direct actions, ranging from more protest actions to general strikes. So the point here is, we're not saying do our thing, do our dump the incumbent, and don't do the other things that the left is starting to do. We are saying, do these other things. Let's have the mass movements. Let's demand different forms of justice. Let's use a variety of direct actions, ranging from minor protest actions to general strikes. We're all for those things. We're not against those things. We're for them. We're saying the key here is to increasingly disrupt economic systems that work for the wealthy but not for anyone else, while aligning with and restoring unions. But second, to make electoralism work, we need to bring mass movements and direct action to the election system itself. That's what we're doing here. Dump the Incumbents is not electoralism because it's taking direct action to destroy the kind of electoralism that we have now and restore the kind of electoralism we used to have in the 1940s, the 1950s, the 1960s, and in other periods, of American history. We have to recognize that it's not so much electoralism which is at fault, but that there are different kinds of electoralism, and that electoralism needs underlying social and economic systems that support it. And what's happened to us is that we've lost the underlying conditions that support it because of the intervention of money into politics, the big money, into politics.
And all the rules that go with it. And so this is similar, this approach to me is very similar to the results that would be created from a mass protest or a mass strike. Because what you're doing is you're completely shifting everything. You're shifting the game. And when you turn things upside down, when you shift things, you're creating space for new things to grow. And hopefully the new things that grow will actually save life on Earth.
Yes, I think that's very true. I also think that what we're trying to do here is part and parcel of the greater mass movement that we are trying to create. It's just a manifestation of that mass movement with respect to the electoral system. In other words, we're saying there's room for different kinds of activism in the greater mass movement that we are trying to create. And this is one piece of that larger mass movement. It rides on top of it. It's another way to change the climate of the times, which is what we're trying to do. It's another way to get rid of neoliberalism and put another system in place.
And this crucial, very crucial time that we have, we need every single mass movement direction, whatever it is, please put it out there in full force, because it's crucial that we all are contributing whatever we can contribute, whatever direction our soul is taking us. Yeah, do that. because we it's really sad to see something so beautiful not be here.
Something so beautiful, such as, at one level, ourselves, but also our surroundings, the earth itself, all the things that we hold dear are being threatened now by neoliberalism and by its impacts But we must do something about that. And as we started out by saying, we've got only 2 to 3 years. Lots of the things we're trying now are making progress. They are the start of something. But they're not moving fast enough. We can see they don't move sufficiently rapidly. We have to do something to speed it up, to speed up everything in the movement, the protests, okay, the general strikes. They have to all be part of this whole movement. And what we're trying to say is that this strike at the electoral system itself, this strike is part of the movement. It's just another manifestation of that movement. But Shane, please put up the concluding slide. Okay, I will get there myself. Hashtag Dump The Incumbents is not about pursuing electoralism. It's about disrupting electoralism by getting people to vote against big money in politics, by firing all the legislators who take that money. I guess I should use a Trumpism here, right? You're fired, right? It is about making that money and its influence over incumbents toxic to those incumbents, so that money will be driven out of politics by voters to replaced by the demands of people expressed through mass movements, protest activities, general strikes by unions, alternative media, and people's pressure campaigns. Pressure campaigns by the people on the legislators across the board. And what I mean by across the board is not just the Congress, not just the House, okay, not just the Senate, but not just the presidency. But we're talking here about our legislators at every level, at the state level, okay, as well as the local level. I mean, look at Seattle. What is fueling the campaign against Kashama in Seattle?
All big money.
Big money, but also a lot of the colleagues, okay, of Kashama Sawant have been bought by Amazon and work against her in the council. How do we stop that? Dump the incumbents. Dump the incumbents who take the money. But also, okay, in Washington, there was just a protest by the Red Berets in Vancouver, okay, in Washington, by the Red Berets and whole Washington together, okay, in Washington, in Vancouver, specifically in the district of Senator Cleveland, who has had single-payer bills tied up in Washington for years now, blocking the efforts of whole Washington, okay, and the Red Berets to pass single-payer in Washington. The Dump the Incumbents campaign would be toxic to people like Senator Cleveland, who are taking money from the healthcare interests to block the passage of single payer. So what is this about? It's about creating the primacy of bottom-up politics in America. What is bottom-up politics? It is the politics of the people. It is politics in which decisions that come out of the system are decisions that are made for the benefit of the people and with the support of the people. What this is the equivalent of a general strike, but it is a general strike of voters against the system and the way it works now. And that's the way you have to look at it. If you were thinking about a general strike in politics, well, that wouldn't be staying home from politics, because all you do when you stay home is deliver the power to the people with the money. Okay, again, so the equivalent of a general strike when it comes to the political system is dumping the incumbents. And that is another way of looking at what we're doing here. So that completes the slides. Are there any further comments before we go more deeply into
I have a question.
comments? Yes, indeed.
How long did it take you to put all those slides together? From yesterday, from last week and today, or from a few days ago and today?
Well, I guess I've been working on the slide set for maybe 2 weeks now. But what I want to emphasize here is we're going to be changing this slide set. We're going to be adding, a lot more images to it as we go forward. What I want to see us do is to polish it, to simplify it, to make it more communicable. Because at some point, we're going to want to do videos based on the slide set in some way in order to feed the campaign. And we're going to need 1-minute videos, we're going to need 5-minute videos, we're going to need 10-minute videos, and so on. We're going to need videos a lot shorter and a lot clearer in communication than what we've just done. And that's going to take a lot of work. And in the future streams, we're going to have to take a part of this and refine each part, and we'll be adding new objections all the time, as people will come up, with new objections. And there'll have to be a website with information about the individual candidates. And you've been compiling, a lot of data yourself on that kind of thing. And Jimmy Sunderland has been doing work here to also compile data, on candidates across the country to help us with this. As I said, we'll soon be constructing a website, and we're going to be producing recommendations each week about who is not taking money, the incumbents who are not taking money, but also the candidates across the country who are running small donor campaigns and who are not taking money.
There's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them.
I've never seen so many. Like, I thought last election cycle is insane. This is quadruple.
And you know exactly where these candidates are because you've been searching for them and keeping records on them.
Well, so I put them all in DM groups. So I'm in communication with them all, and they're all in communication with each other. So they help each other, because when you're a grassroots when you're fundraising by just contacting your friends and family and your coworkers, and you're building your base from there.
Yes.
You need a lot of help, because once you collect that initial money, you don't know where to go to build upon that. And so they all help each other in saying, okay, we'll use this organization. All right, use this agency. Do it like this, do it like that. And it's good to see them helping each other.
Yes, and we can have candidates like that on this show for conversations. frequently, because we want to give candidates who would be alternatives to the incumbents some exposure so people can see what they're like, okay, and what they're offering, and also can find out that they're not actually taking the big money. So we have a lot of things we can cover in this show as we go forward. And of course, we hope to be able to spawn a campaign that is going to have a big impact on the elections in 2022. As you say, we have almost a year, and we can make very good use, okay, of that year. And we're starting out, okay, as a once-a-week show. It may stay that way, okay, it may not. It depends upon how much work, okay, that we find that we have to do. And of course, it's going to depend, on some other commitments that we have. But this is a big job, and we're going to have to enlist some other people to help us out.
And a lot of people.
And there are going to be other live streamers too, who will be echoing this.
God, I hope so.
Yeah, because we hope that this is going to be the beginning of a movement.
Please catch fire.
Please catch fire, because the only way we're going to survive, okay, is if we all catch fire and we all do this work. So let's go over some of the comments that we've missed in going through the show tonight. There, of course, are all the greeting comments and some other comments that we've read. And by the way, Lana has reminded everybody to like, subscribe, and share. And we would be very grateful, okay, if you do this. And Teresa Sanders points out Ralph Nader has an organizing book that is supposed to be a good guideline for planning, organizing, okay, and mobilizing. I've been trying to order it, but haven't been successful yet. Anyone know about it? Yes, I guess I do know about it. I haven't read it, though. So I can't really help you about the basics of the planning. Okay, but I know that Whole Washington has put together a plan for a ground game for getting signatures. That is absolutely phenomenal. This is being done by Andre Stackhouse, and we'll certainly have him on the show at some point to talk about his plans, okay, for a ground game there. By the way, the plans are more than plans. He's beginning to implement them now. They're beginning to put together the signature captains. In order to get on the ballot there for their campaign, they need 400,000 signatures. And he's putting together 800 signature captains to get the 400,000
That'll work.
signatures. Yeah,
That will work, because everything is ground game, and ground game is people.
ground game is people, and people who are willing to go out and to go door to door.
That's right. That's what ground game is. People willing to knock on strangers' doors and convince them that the reason why they're knocking is important and they should be listened to and they should follow whatever is being spoken about. Having that but also having the language to be able to draw somebody in is very important.
Yes. Okay, Teresa Sanders made a lot of good comments here tonight, so thank you, Teresa. I won't be able to read them all, but you always have very good comments. Steve Gonzo made some comment about AFTAB by Puraval. No wonder you couldn't remember at K. Ryan. I'm not sure what that's about, but I thought it was strange enough to mention it. And maybe Steve will clarify it for us. AFTAB Puraval. I think that sounds like a prescription. Okay, let's see. And so Kay Ryan asks, Shane, can you find out who Tim Ryan from Ohio takes money from? I can tell you a lot of who he takes money from is the unions in Ohio. He's much favored by the unions. Over the years, he's been a strong supporter, okay, of unions, at least of the union leaders and what they try to do. Here we go, Shane. Open secrets. Tim Ryan. Oops. Scrolled a little too fast for that. But Tim Ryan's a congressman, of course, in Ohio, okay, at this point. And he is running for the Senate now because the Senate seat is vacated, so there won't be an incumbent for Ohio's second Senate seat. But Sherrod Brown is the senator from Ohio in the other seat.
Can Nina run?
I'm sorry?
Can Nina run again?
She can run again for Congress. Yes. In other words, they are going to have the standard election for Congress. In other words, the first election was a special election to fulfill the seat.
I remember, yeah, but she hasn't announced.
No, she hasn't quite announced. She may be turning over the possibility of a Senate run.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure she's carefully considering that, but that may be rough. But in Ohio, it would be the most interesting race to see if she can run a Bernie type campaign, okay, and motivate people to vote for her in what is I guess now it's more than a borderline red state. It's been sort of a fully red state for some time. The only surviving Democrat there at a high level, okay, is Sherrod Brown, who always runs with strong support but from the unions.
If we could, I lost my thought. Sorry. I remember.
Good.
If we could somehow get people that do not vote to vote, we would overwhelm the entire system.
Oh yeah, that was Bernie's mantra for a very long time. That's what he was trying to do.
And that's what he did do.
When he won. Yeah, he did a lot of that, okay, when he won. But I think a very important point here is that so many people may not vote because they hate the system, because they hate the Congress, because they hate the way it works, both the Senate, okay, and the House. And
they have every right to hate
it. They have every right to hate it, but the point is, this campaign should have an appeal to them. It should have an appeal to them because it is a way to strike back.
You're dropping all the incumbents on their butts.
Yep. Yeah, what a wonderful time that is. If you really hate the Congress, you would view that as a real party. And Lana says to Ramona, you need to understand this is very important. You are... Oh.
I don't think that's really from Lana.
No, it's not from Lana. It's from one of the trolls that we have.
Yeah.
Okay, impersonating Lana. Yeah, we've had them from time to time. I think that Lana was here at first, but we have been bothered for weeks by this particular troll, who I believe is just trying to start a fight, actually, between KRTD Media, okay, and RP. That's what's going on here.
Which is so silly. And, it just they're trying to create weakness. Don't We'll pay attention to these people.
We are not paying attention to these people. Okay. So then the real Lana did comment, reminding us that this is a 3-term effort, at least 2022, 2024, and 2026. Fran Bauer says to you, Ramona, that you have such a beautiful, soft voice.
Thank you. As I cough.
And Fran Bauer says we'll have to boost KRTD Media on Twitter. Some more trolls on here as well.
Yeah. They're just trolling to troll. It's kind of funny.
I know.
Just for fun. Because why not?
Yep. Yeah, we've had some fun of our own today. So the real Anna asked, what is a jungle primary? I answered that. Kay points out Kucinich was mayor of Cleveland when Cleveland rocked and was not the poorest big city in the country. And he was a good congressman, too. He was a very good congressman. He was one of the best congressmen, actually. Goshnot says Fiorella Isabel, the left in the global south, is electing socialists focused on economics and ending imperialism. Yes, I know. I'm well aware of the movement all through Latin America. And Lana says, when making comments online about this topic, please use the hashtag Dump The Incumbents. Thank you, Lana. And Lana also says, we're discussing having some merchandise to buy, including bumper stickers with hashtag Dump The Incumbents.
Oh, nice, Lana. I love how laser focused Lana is.
Yeah, Lana is giving a great.
I love it. It's great.
And she points out, okay, that Andre, okay, is awesome. Yes, he is, and he's another person who is laser focused on stuff. His mind, okay, is very clear.
The fake Lana Del says that I'm a tremendous threat, and I really wish I was. Please make me a tremendous threat.
Well, we're doing our best. We're doing our best to make you a tremendous threat. So we hope that will continue. Okay, so everybody, are there any final comments?
Or questions?
Questions, comments, yes. Okay, if not, then we will see you next Wednesday. Okay, and Ramona, okay, and I will be planning how to break all of this up and how to break it down in such a way as to fuel a campaign.
Yeah, that people will use and feel empowered by and spread themselves.
Yes, indeed, that's the job that awaits us. And I think we're going to have a lot of fun doing that job as well.
Absolutely.
So thank you for coming, everybody. And thank you for helping us through this show.
Bye, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Joe, for having me co-host with you.
Oh, that's... When I asked you, that was a wonderful thing that I did. I think this is going to be great. Great. And